Civil Aviation Authority has reissued 2 CemAir operator certificates. This makes it possible for the grounded airline to operate under civil aviation regulations. The airline was grounded in December, that was the 11th of December last year, following safety concerns. To tell us more on this, we're joined in studio by Luvuyo Silandela, who is the Senior Manager for Legal and Aviation Compliance at the South African Civil Aviation Authority. Good to have you. Thanks so much for being with us here.
Warm greetings.
So there were safety concerns. What has led to CemAir's operating licenses now being reissued?
Right. Just a correction on title, Acting Senior Manager for Legal and Aviation Compliance.
Thanks so much for that.
Right. We welcome the development of last week, Thursday, 17th October 2019, which saw the operations of CemAir being able to resume as a result of the issuance of the 2 AOC certificates. This is after, of course, a process that was not ordinary. The process started 11 December 2018, ending with the issuance that has recently taken place. So this is a testament to the oversight approach adopted by the CAA, which continues to ensure that we continue with our safety record of 0 fatalities in commercial aviation for over decades.
Remind us of what the safety concerns actually were and how they have now satisfied those concerns to give the licenses back.
All right. So, Leon, the audit started on the 11th of December 2018, wherein it is an ordinary scheduled audit where the license, the certificates of CemAir were due for renewal. So they applied in time, and the date was arranged for the audit to take place. So essentially, during the course of the audits, there are 2 areas that had been identified. That relates to the a post holder being a responsible person for flight operation, as well as challenges which relate to continued aircraft maintenance. So essentially, what was determined through these audits is that there was an identified lack of control and monitoring of continued airworthiness. This resulted in the regulator stepping in and suspending the operations pending effective resolution of the safety concern.
So a lot of technicalities involved here for somebody like me, and I think a lot of other viewers who don't necessarily understand all of this air talk and aviation talk. So talk us through part 121, the certificate, and part 135 certificate. What exactly are those?
Right. So essentially, for any airline to operate commercially, they're required to hold 2 permissions: an air service license issued by an entity of the Department of Transport Air Service Licensing Council, as well as an AOC that is issued by the CAA. So on the CAA side, there are various forms of operations. So part 121 and 135 really talks to the capacity of those operations. 121 being a high capacity, 20 passengers and more, and 135 being low capacity, that would be below 20 passengers.
Yeah, so that's the 19 passengers that we keep referring to. Indeed. That CemAir are able to accommodate on their flights. You know, so why is it not more? I mean, we talked to 19 passengers. Why the limitation there?
Okay, so it speaks to the scope of operation and risk involved. You'd imagine those large operations where we carry 100 and over passengers, there's a heightened level of risk as well as regulation in that regard. So to perhaps give an overview of the process that has been followed, the audit process, which had an impact on the continued operation of CemAir, resulted in several challenges being presented to our legal institutions. There were 2 High Court applications that emanated in decisions by High Court presiding officers. There are also 2 administrative processes, being an appeal to the Director of Civil Aviation, being the head of the Civil Aviation Authority, as well as an appeal to the CAC, which is the Civil Aviation Appeal Committee, falling under the Department of Transport. So essentially, to summarize the effect of all of this judgment, the implication is that the parties were redirected to interact, engage for the successful resolution of the identified challenges.
Yeah. You know, a lot of South Africans, again, are not necessarily aware. We go, we put our lives onto an aeroplane and, you know, just take it for granted that we're going to take off and land successfully and be at our destination with no problems. But there's so many legalities and so many criteria that airlines that fly commercially in South Africa actually have to meet to be able to be in the air and to operate. What are some of those regulations? I mean, what is it that we should know about these airlines?
All right. I believe that's what makes the role of the regulator quite imperative in those processes, because they oversee these processes. Not only is it the role of the regulator, but each airline has a responsibility to ensure that their operations are compliant with the applicable rules. That would be the Civil Aviation Act 13 of 2009, as well as the Civil Aviation Regulations of 2011. There are forums that are in place to make sure that there is engagement and consensus in the rules that apply in the industry. So there's a regulatory development platform which includes industry, the regulator, as well as the Department of Transport, to make sure that all the rules that are in place not only are suitable for safe operations locally, but also are consistent with other international regulatory entities which the CAA is a part of.
What, just as we begin to wrap up, just from CemAir's side, why the delays? What took so long? I mean, this came about 4 months after the initial announcement was expected on them, and they've been grounded, as you say, since the 11th of December. Why did this take so long?
Right. From a process point of view, it's important to note that, as indicated, this was not an ordinary one, wherein there were a variety of challenges to the decisions that had been taken, emanating in 4 separate oversight into the process that was followed. There were also transactions between the parties that had been taking place throughout this period. And also what's fundamental to note is that once these processes are conducted, the regulator needs to be placed in a position where they can give a thumbs up to the operations, specifically considering the issues of safety.
All right, just finally as we close this, CemAir are operational from today?
So effectively, these certificates were issued last week, Thursday, 17 October 2019. It really paves the way for operations to resume
when they're ready.
Absolutely.
So according to you, they find they can take off as of this morning. But I know that the airline have got a lot of costs to recoup. They've lost millions, as well as a lot of staff that have also been let go of. So we'll have to get them in to talk to them how they plan on moving forward. But thanks for coming from the Aviation Authority side. And the story we're talking to was really about Luvuyo Silandela, Senior Manager for Legal and Aviation Compliance at the Civil Aviation Authority, telling us why CemAir has been reissued with that operating license. Thank you. All right, it's time for your sport.